So Infoscout, first of all, I would guess most of you haven't heard of us, and that's by design. About 3 years ago, my co-founder and I realized that smartphones, of which about 1 in 10 of you in the room probably had at that point in time, were about to fundamentally change the way that we could understand and engage consumers in the 21st century. And that's what led us on this path to create a portfolio of engaging mobile applications that incentivize people to snap pictures of their everyday shopping receipts and answer questions about how they plan, how they shop, and how they consume those products. Our first app, Receipt Hog, was really just a game for us, a way to test whether or not we could get people to snap pictures of their receipts every time they went shopping. If you download the app, you've adopted a virtual runt. You feed it pictures of your shopping receipts. It levels up into a fat and happy hog, earning coins in a piggy bank along the way, and you can cash out at the end of the day. It's a gamified way to earn money for yourself. You don't feel like you're participating in a panel. Our next app, Shopperoo, is the next generation of box tops for education, the excellent school fundraising program that most schools in America promote. And we said, what if you could shop anywhere, buy anything, and every time you do, just take a picture of your receipt and we'll make an instant donation to your kid's school or a charity of your choice. And that's Shopperoo. And those two apps combined now, we have over 250,000 Americans actively taking pictures of their everyday shopping receipts. Our next app is Receipt Bin. It's an alpha state. It's like mint.com. It automatically organizes and digitizes the contents of your receipts so that you can track your spend, manage returns, etc. And we're pretty excited about what the future holds for that. And then finally, Out of Milk was an acquisition we made this last year. It is the top-rated, most used shopping list app in America. Nearly 1 million active users plan their everyday shopping trips with our Out of Milk app. What I'm going to do is share with you a bit about how we're leveraging the data captured from these apps, and in particular, receipts. And the advantage of receipt capture versus traditional purchase panels, where people would historically scan each item one by one and thumb in the prices paid, is that with receipt capture, the whole process of reporting an entire shopping trip is 10-15 seconds. It's over and done. And by simplifying that process of being a panelist, we can give a lot more different types of reasons why somebody might be willing to report those shopping activities. Not because they're a part of a panel, but because they're a parent who cares about their kid's school and wants to donate their receipts. Because they want to feed their virtual runt, for example. So it's quicker. And by quicker, we can get more people to do it more consistently. Also on the receipts is the price paid, and it's accurate. It's after all the discounts, all the loyalty programs, all the coupons, etc. We know what people really paid, not what they say they paid. And then finally, there's a whole bunch of additional data that comes along for the ride. We know if that trip to Walgreens where you bought the cereal and the cleaning supplies, if there was a prescription on that receipt. And that's what drove the trip to Walgreens and why those products were bought there instead of the traditional grocery store, for example. There's all kinds of additional information that you'd never be able to ask people about their trips that's sitting right there on the receipt for us to be able to leverage. And with all of this data, our real mission is measuring the entire path to purchase in real time. Everything from how people plan their trips, how they choose where to shop and what to buy, how they consume it, how they pay for it, and then tying surveys together with it to really understand the whys behind it. So let's put this in context of that virtuous cycle, which is the path to purchase. Certainly not linear, probably a circle is a little bit oversimplistic for it as well. What we'd like to do is walk through kind of phase by phase some of the different types of ways people are measuring and getting insights at each step along the path. So let's start with the zero moment of truth. It's a relatively new concept. We can thank Google for popularizing it. They have their own definition, which is very research-oriented in terms of the step of people trying to find out about products. We've defined it as really that moment when people decide they have a need or a want that they're going to fulfill. And one of the things that we found from our research is that for 72% of grocery purchases, that moment happens outside the store. And we know that because of the 40 million receipts that we captured last year, we randomly selected 500,000 products off of those receipts and triggered surveys to the people who bought them to ask them a set of standardized questions about what led to that purchase. And it gave us a ton of insights along the entire path from which we could base a lot of the findings that you'll see throughout the rest of these slides. And so what we're seeing now is a shift where leading brands are no longer just worried about what their sales are in store, but they're actually measuring the upstream events on a consistent basis and their market share and the trigger points for those upstream events to really understand how it's impacting the purchase decision that's happening in store. From zero moment of truth, we move on to the planning phase. And the realization that almost 80% of grocery trips start with a shopping list or a plan is what led us to acquire Out of Milk, where again, we're capturing almost 10 million planned item purchases every month through this app that people are just using continuously because it's a way for them to plan their shopping activities. And that data has allowed us to compare how they plan their trips to what they actually buy with an entirely new level of insights that typically hasn't been available in purchase panels before. So for example, to what extent does a particular brand or category tend to appear in the shopping list versus in the basket? For example, dairy products are the #1 thing listed on a shopping list typically. It's the most common occurrence of a type of product on a shopping list. However, it ranks only 3rd among the products that exist inside the baskets. Contrast that to produce, fresh fruits and vegetables. Those are more likely to appear in a basket than they are on the shopping list. And you can see how that shifts by category. So we can really understand what are the items that are trip drivers versus those that are follow along. And we can understand whether or not people are deciding to buy a particular brand of product at home or they're deciding at the store. And related to that, we did a study across all kinds of categories to understand by category the extent to which people had already decided what brand they were going to buy when they were at home, as opposed to they made that decision in the store and at the shelf. And you can see for things like carbonated beverages and cereals, a bit more likely than most categories to decide at home. Whereas products like toilet paper or some of the other undifferentiated products, they're going to decide in store at the shelf in terms of what they're going to grab. It's also interesting when you look at brick and mortar versus online shopping activity. The level of planning is significantly different between the two. In this case, we took 5,000 respondents and asked them about their shopping trips after in-store Walmart, online Walmart.com, and online Amazon.com for select product categories to understand the level of planning that went into the shopping trip. Were all the items planned before they bought? Were some of them? Or none at all, and it was an impulse buy? And what you can see that really jumps out is obviously in store, there's a lot of impulse purchase activity going on in store. There's not so much online. The exception is Amazon is getting really good at those extra follow-on product recommendations, right? You make that first purchase, you do some initial browsing, and they're feeding some additional ideas for you. And so that's that 17% number in the bottom of they're actually getting people to buy products that they weren't planning at all. And there is more browsing activity going on Amazon than Walmart. When people are going to Walmart.com, they already know what they're going to buy. Amazon has moved beyond that. And we can see how that differs, again, by category, by shopper segment, by different type of need. The first moment of truth. This is the moment when people decide which product or service they're actually going to buy. And the data from that 500,000 different surveys that we issued over the last year indicates that about half the time this happens in the store and at the shelf. Okay? That decision of exactly what brand or product I'm going to buy, half the time is happening in store and at the shelf. And of course, if you're a brand, you probably want to know, well, how does that differ for people who are trying my brand for the first time versus those who are repeat buying? How does it differ by channel that I sell through? How does it differ versus my brand versus the competition? And so we've got a lot of clients that are starting to leverage us for these very purposes. So take, for example, the Greek yogurt category. In the Greek yogurt category, we've found that 57% of the time, people have already decided what brand of Greek yogurt they're going to buy before they enter the store. That's the category average. But let's start breaking it out by brand within the category and understand the differences. If you're Dan and Oikos, why is it that you're capturing only 15% share when the decision is made at the store? Oh, I need Greek yogurt, what should I buy? Just 15% of the time. Their overall share is quite a bit higher than that. What about their trade, their merchandising in store is causing them to lose out? Contrast that to Chobani. Chobani does very well on impulse buys, does extremely well for planned purchases. It doesn't do so well when people say, I've got Greek yogurt on my list, but I'm not sure which Greek yogurt I'm going to buy. and then they get to the shelf and they're not choosing Chobani relative to other brands. What is it about their shelf presence, the brand recognition among those people that aren't deciding, and how does that contrast to, say, Stonyfield Greek? And why is Stonyfield Greek winning so much share for that kind of decision-making process? Another interesting thing about the level of planning that's gone into the purchase is it can indicate why people are buying to begin with. Related to these surveys, we understood whether people had already decided on the brand at home. That's the yes. They knew they wanted, in this case, a dandruff shampoo before they went to the store but weren't sure which one. That's the sort of. Or they weren't planning to buy a dandruff shampoo at all. That's the no category. What's interesting is in that same survey, when we had people write open text reviews for those products, certain themes emerged. Okay? When the answer was, yes, I knew I was going to buy Head & Shoulders before entering the store, you can see that positive results in quality jumped to the top in their product reviews. These are people who had had a good experience with the product, considered a high-quality product that was going to deliver the results. That's what drove them to know before going into the store they were going to buy Head & Shoulders. The people who say, sort of, I knew I was going to get a dandruff shampoo, weren't sure which one, these are the people talking about quality of the product. They haven't had those positive results yet. These are the triers, for example. Or they had symptoms, they knew they needed a dandruff shampoo, they weren't sure which why. And what's interesting here is we can see for this category and for these products what percentage of the time each one of these happens. So if you think about where to invest your brand marketing efforts, your positioning, whether it should be on the results or the quality or the symptoms or something else, out of home or in store, understanding the proportion of the time each one of these comes into play in the decision-making process at the shelf can be incredibly important. Purchase data I've already mentioned. We're capturing almost 200,000 shopping trips a day. That includes both physical brick and mortar shopping trips where people take a picture of the receipt, but we now also have 200,000 Americans who have given us access to their email accounts as well so that we can read out the e-receipts and get a full omni-channel picture of their shopping activity. And so we'll leverage this data to understand things like online versus offline purchase behavior. And so if you look at this, we've taken a number of different product categories, cookies, shampoo, diapers, laundry, etc. And we've contrasted shopping behavior between Walmart, Walmart.com, and Amazon.com, starting with what percentage of the overall trip or basket was that single category. And what you can clearly see here is when people shop online, they're shopping fewer categories, but when they shop that category, the numbers on the right are the dollars per basket of that category, they're spending a lot more on the category. Fewer categories, more dollars per category. So what does that mean? Well, the implications of that is that you're going to have lower purchase frequency. People are going to stock up a bit more on the category when they buy it online, but they're not going to purchase it quite as often. What might that mean for your assortment decisions of what kind of products and SKUs and sizes, pack sizes, etc., you offer for the online shopper versus not? Or what kind of bundle packs you might consider? Because they're going to buy less frequently, can you add something on associated with it? And then finally, there's the big question that all of our clients have and are starting to work with us to measure: what does online shopping mean for brand loyalty? Does it mean that people are already in the habit of buying my product and they're going to subscribe to it and therefore they're more likely to remain loyal? Or in some categories, does it actually mean they're less likely to remain loyal? And you can see from the data here, maybe for diapers, maybe for dog food, they're a bit more loyal. For women's health, not at all. Not at all. Actually, much less. Maybe they're more likely to research, review, and try something new in the privacy of their home versus having to make that decision at the shelf. So I think the implications are very different depending on the product category that we're actually talking about. The other thing that we're doing is measuring the overall journey. In this case, this is an online path to purchase review. When people buy online, what were the sequence of events that they took that led them to that particular purchase? In the case of research, what research did they perform? Did they go in store and do some showrooming, if you will? Did they compare prices across sites, et cetera? What percentage of the time did each of these things happen? How did they place the order? On the go with their smartphone versus comfort of their home on a laptop or tablet? And then what kind of delivery? Okay? And how do each of these factors influence where they're shopping online, what they're buying online? Is your brand winning or losing in particular scenarios along these lines? I think it's important to understand, and we get more and more clients that are starting to measure this. This is actually from a live system we have in place, a tracker for a client to understand the shifts of the online path to purchase for their products. Then we get to the second moment of truth. It's in the home, for example. It's that decision to consume or use the product. And the real question I have for the brands in the audience is how well are you measuring your brand's performance and its market share by consumption opportunity? There are different kinds of consumption opportunities that exist throughout the day, and there are different consumers. The shopper may not be the consumer, okay? My wife buys my razors. She's not the consumer for them, for sure, and vice versa on different products. And so understanding performance among shopper groups versus performance among consumer groups is also quite important. And so we're triggering surveys to understand consumption behavior based on the shopping behavior that we also see to be able to tie the two together. And from that, we can create a tracker of market share by, for example, time of day. Take the Greek yogurt example. We can segment it by type of shopper and lifestyle, and we can understand by time of day what percentage of the time Greek yogurt is being consumed as a category, and then compare a given brand or product line and its consumption by time of day compared to the category and compared to key competition. In this case, if you're the main brand and your competitor is winning as a midday snack, what is it? What is it about their advertising? Is that how they're showing it being consumed? Is it the packaging of how it's offered? Does it come with a spoon? What are the things that are being done there, and why are you losing out on those particular opportunities? And with that, I welcome any questions.
Questions? I have one.
Andy.
How quickly after you observe a purchase on a receipt are you able to fire off a survey?
It's a great question. So right now, for a lot of our trigger surveys, we can do that within 1 to 2 minutes. So depending on the retailer that we're looking at and what we see on the receipt, we can auto-read that product via computer vision, match it to our database of items we're looking for to trigger surveys off it, and immediately kick that survey back. And so literally as fast as a couple of minutes. And then even if we can't read it via computer vision, certainly by overnight we'll have transcribed it and triggered the survey to the person as well. So easily within 24 hours, but a large percentage can be kicked off immediately.